So right now, I'm working on a big Fallout TV show review. I had my doubts going in, but we did get something worth talking about here, including a couple brand new vaults. Before we get to them, however, we do have to deal with the mutant elephant in the room. I don't think the starship theory is going to work out. It was a good run, but the show has practically made it clear there's no starship planned by Vault-Tec. So, unless there's a twist within a twist, or the ship is more of an Enclave deal than a Vault-Tec one, I think Tim Kane's original idea for the true nature of vaults isn't the canon idea Bethesda wants to go with. Instead of the vaults being made to build the perfect generation ship for humanity, I believe the canon reason for the vault experiments is the one we get in the show's Vault-Tec meeting scene. Well, as much as I can show of it anyways. According to one of Vault-Tec's top tier executives, the true nature of the vault experiments is to facilitate a better mankind, one which can move past war, making it obsolete, and reconstruct the world to be a greater one. The horrible human experiments were the result of investors who bought up existing vaults and used them to create the perfect conditions for improving humanity as they saw fit. Whatever the ideal human was to Vault-Tec's investors, that's what the experiments were meant to produce. Every vault is now evil because human beings were tricked into applying for safety shelter communities only for their freedoms and lives to be sacrificed to fulfill the dreams of the rich. Human beings are engineered to become something beyond their control by someone far worse than them. I will be honest when I say I do prefer the spaceship idea, because I see a big hole in this new one. Vault experiments are set to be invented by competitive business owners, corporate leaders, and investors who each have a different idea for a better mankind. That's just going to lead to more conflict and war between the vaults. Plus, it's all but stated they'll be competing in the future.
It was the spirit of competition that made our companies great. And I propose we bring that same spirit of competition to our solution. And may the best idea win. This is our chance to make war obsolete. And may the best idea win. May the best idea win.
If the vaults are supposed to better humanity and make war obsolete, why are vaults made to compete with one another? It's kind of dumb. Again, maybe there's going to be a twist within a twist, and we learn the business leaders are getting played by Vault-Tec. The same way Mr. House is probably playing everyone in the room to get info for his own agenda. I hope it gets addressed. Weirdly enough, I'm more alright with the idea that the goofy one-off vaults are genuinely supposed to be experiments to make better survivors. Oh, at first I thought it was stupid. That billionaires were hedging their bets on bettering mankind, making things like one man in a vault with puppets, 20 people, and a panther. But they make it clear the investors can buy multiple vaults to try out multiple ideas, and they do a good job of showing how out of touch these people are to humanity. Also, people with money can be stupid, so yeah. Not a great idea, it's just not a deal breaker to me. What is a deal breaker is how Vault-Tec says they have plans to start the Great War, and it's implied they dropped the bombs first. I really hope this doesn't end up being the case, because this would bomb hard. The mystique and meaning of the Great War would be lost, replaced with generic evil conspiracy. And the potential for Vault-Tec to represent a unique taste of evil, preservation gone wrong, or corrupt utilitarian nightmare, would be replaced with generic evil corporation. I go over this more in the review, but man, I don't like this. Everything else is something I can work with. Finally, onto how this lore will affect my Vault series moving forward. I'd always leaned toward the starship theory, but now I lean toward reclamation. I'll be presenting ideas on both the potential owner of each vault and how the experiments would make a better mankind. But for all of you space fans out there, don't you worry. I'm still going to throw in my ideas for the starship theory. From here on out, you'll be getting 2 explanations for why each vault is evil, starting with the vaults from the show. So, without further ado, here's why every vault is evil, Volume 3. Vault 4 was a vault blatantly advertised to be governed by scientists. The place was owned by Hawthorne Medical Laboratories, a subsidiary of Vault-Tec. So presumably, researchers from the labs qualified for housing. The scientists who did run the place lived full-time inside of it, even before the bombs fell, working and conducting research as they would on the surface. What wasn't advertised, however, was the true nature of this research. Vault 4's ruling scientists performed human experimentation, attempting to hybridize humans with radioactive resistant species. As a result, Wastelanders were lured inside the vault to be treated like lab rats, forcibly mutated, or made to give birth to mutants. Notably, Vault 4 produced the West Coast variant of the Gulper, a giant predatorial salamander species known to live on the East Coast. Except, whereas the East Coast variants are implied to just be bigger, deadlier salamanders, the West Coast variant is part human. More than that, it's possible some of these Gulpers were once people.
Sorry, I haven't seen that footage in a long time. Creature in the video was actually my great-uncle Peter on my mom's side.
This wouldn't be a huge stretch, considering how the Force evolutionary virus in the series is something that converts regular humans and animals into horrific hybrids. And the Gulpers even have this weird fleshy skin like the centaurs, which are FEV hybrids between humans, dogs, and cats. These were once people like you and me, and I believe the Gulpers were as well. Thank you, Vault 4. Sooner than later, the residents had enough. The test subjects violently rebelled against the scientists, including the Gulpers who made short work of them. But while the Gulpers seem to have left and inhabited the wilds outside the vault, the more human vault dwellers remained inside of it. Over the generations, their mutations would blossom and bring about dwellers who, let's just say, stand out. Apparently, these Vault 4 dwellers allowed normal survivors inside of their home, and one could become a regular Vault 4 resident, as long as they followed the rules and didn't trespass into level 12, where the original human experiments took place. It's a sore spot for mutant residents, who carry generational trauma from the evils inflicted upon their families. But despite that, they genuinely mean well helping outsiders. For proof of this, in the later 2200s, the capital of the New California Republic, Shady Sands, was struck by an atomic blast. Refugees from the destruction made their way to Vault 4, and were allowed to become residents. They have really strange rituals to honor Shady Sands, but the mutant dwellers tried to be open-minded.
What's going on?
It's a surface dweller tradition. It can get a little rambunctious for my taste.
Well, emphasis on try. There are some signs not everything is perfect. Even the Overseer, a Cyclops by the name of Benjamin, admits to harboring some non-voter-friendly feelings towards the refugees.
Oh, these people, am I right? If you want to get elected, you have to respect their traditions and tolerate them and not call them surfies. It's awful.
Jeez, I wonder how he'd get along with Set. Lastly, we do find out what happens to those who break the rules. Lucy, a resident of Vault 33 and one of the main characters in the show, defies the Overseer's orders not to enter level 12. She throws acid into the face of a dweller and attacks those who come to arrest her. For her crimes against Vault 4 in the face of their hospitality, Lucy is sentenced to death.
By banishment to the surface! Need to get that sharpened, please.
All things considered, that's pretty fair. And it just goes to show how oddly wholesome Vault 4 is. What started as a place for inhumane experimentation became a legitimate sanctuary. Unless the death of Moldaver makes people go monkey mode. That might still happen. Just as a recap, Moldaver is the villain in Season 1. She survived the destruction of Shady Sands, and its refugees worship her as the Flame Mother, praying that blood must spill, and that she'll bring back the Shady Sands they remember. The thing is, Moldaver could actually do so. She's looking into creating an almost infinite source of energy called cold fusion, which would make the reconstruction process easily possible. But now she's dead, proclaimed to be killed by Brotherhood aspirant Maximus, who rampaged through Vault 4 and stole its fusion core, the lifeblood of the whole vault. Sure, he ended up giving it back, only I don't think that'll matter once Vault 4 hears the news about Moldaver. That might just send people over the edge. Folks might stop praying for blood to spill and make it spill. Tensions between normies and mutants could increase during the grieving process, and the way the Brotherhood of Steel, the killer of their chosen one, is moving into LA, I don't think Vault 4 would handle annexation well. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. As to what purpose Vault 4 would serve, I can think of a couple possibilities. For one, creating human hybrids with radiation resistance would give Vault 4 a leg up over other vaults which just have normal people. It would allow for future generations to exist who have no fear of radiation poisoning or reproduction problems. Also, a ruling government of scientists is an interesting idea, so perhaps checking in on the longevity of one is a good idea, seeing what works and what leads to catastrophic failure. For the spaceship theory, there's radiation in space. Potential exposure is a problem, which could be mitigated by creating rad-resistant hybrids of spacefarers. Considering how space crews tend to be educated, smart people, why not make a test government full of those types? See how that works, and if it's a bomb.
Pretty good, right? She doesn't get it.
Vault 31 is a vault directly connected to two others, Vault 32 and 33. Altogether, this is a trilateral society, and the closeness comes in handy. 32 and 33 have artificial farms, trading supplies and dwellers with one another to mitigate any ration problems or genetic ones. However, Vault 31 doesn't seem to have an artificial farm, or a population for that matter, which might surprise you to learn it's secretly the most significant of the three vaults. That's because Vault 31 houses Overseer Bud Askins, Vault-Tec's senior junior vice president, who manages all three of the vaults. He coordinates with the overseers of Vault 32 and 33, who keep him and his agenda a secret from their own people. See, Bud believes in two things: that the ultimate weapon of mass destruction is time, and that the future of humanity is management. So he killed two birds with one stone. Bud facilitated a giant vault experiment to bring about the best human beings possible for reclaiming the world above. He froze a group of pre-war Americans known as Bud's Buds, who in his own words are a well-trained staff of highly supervised junior executives from his own assistant training program. These buds would then be released time and time again to intermingle with the vault populations. They were smart, capable people, many of which, or potentially all of which, went on to become overseers. Vault 31 was meant to produce leaders, but it was also meant to help the gene pools of the other vaults, fostering generations of manager material down the line. So, Vault 31 is basically the head of a eugenics program, and the result of Bud Askins looking to use people as breeding fodder to bring about his ideal humanity. Like overseers in other vaults, Bud has no qualms hiding the true nature of his vaults and its experiment from the vault population, to the point of ineffectively trying to inject Norm, the son of Vault 33's former overseer, with the substance to potentially end him. Then effectively trapping Norm in the cryo room, forcing him to freeze himself. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, as we see is the case with many villains in the series. Like them, Bud truly seems to believe in his mission to better humanity. We see this during the Vault-Tec meeting with other corporate leaders, where he looks disturbed by their Vault proposals, and the idea of the Vaults being competitive with one another. As a result, you could argue Bud and his experiment are a lot more humane than the other Vaults. But that's really the only difference here. Take the corporate leaders during the Vault-Tec meeting. Everyone at this table has an idea of where they want humanity to go after the war, and how to change us into that idea. Everyone wants to use innocent people and convert them into their own image of an ideal human being, even Bud. And that's the evil of Vault 31. It seems like a good idea at first, but it's a eugenics vault with a goofy Roomba megalomaniac at the helm, using what little power he has to manipulate the little chunk of humanity he has. Freedom is traded for security. People who deserve basic autonomy have their rights stripped away by a cold, controlling environment, only maintaining the illusion of choice, comfort, and freedom. The vault is the allegory of the cave. And, yeah, that checks out for a bunch of vaults, actually. Forget the starship theory, we're moving on to Socratic theory. But in all seriousness, Vault 31's goal of bettering mankind is making generations of smart, effective leaders capable of managing the world outside. And with the cryo chambers, one could wait out a good chunk of the outside human competition, assuming it doesn't slip inside or outright storm the gates. If it lucked out, all Vault 31 would need to do is wait for history to do its thing to outside empires. Factions who have already been crippled by generational infighting and decay, before moving in for the kill. For the starship theory, 31 could serve as a test into cryogenic maintenance. Is it a good idea to entrust such a crucial task to a single immortal human, or should the job go to something else? Should it go to a whole team of people? Vault 111 had an entire crew monitoring the cryo chambers, whereas 31 just had one evil Roomba. And yet, 31 outlasted 111. It goes to show you never can tell. Vault 32 is the next installment of the Trilateral Vault, and it did have a population of unfrozen dwellers who lived, farmed, and prospered. But not anymore. Something happened here. Something really, really bad. Props to the show for not just having a proper horror vault right out the gate, but one that actually relies on environmental storytelling. It would have been so easy to rely on terminal entries or an exposition dump here, but they keep it mysterious. Like the best scary stories, just enough is left to the imagination to keep the horror lingering in our heads. And that means there's no definitive answers here. We get clues about what went down in Vault 32 causing it to collapse, but nothing certain. The crops are all dead, and so are the Vault dwellers. Meanwhile, haunting the hallways are signs of conflict and cannibalism, both of which are referenced in the Vault's televised mouse experiments. As if that's not bad enough, there's damages to the Vault wall, as if escape attempts were made by people desperate to get out. Then, there's the fact we see how the dwellers died in the Vault, so clearly whatever happened was something devastating. Working with all of this, I'm going to cover a couple of ideas I have on what caused Vault 32 to collapse, but in no way should any of them be taken as the definitive lore behind 32. Maybe we'll get that in a future season, and it'll warrant an update video, but we'll see. For now, this is what I think. Vault 32's residents somehow discovered the true nature of Vault 31. This caused a brutal civil war against the Vault's higher-ups, who kept the Vault's nature a secret from them. This war is reflected not just by certain dead bodies, including the tortured corpse of the Overseer, but the graffiti on the walls. We even get what seems to be a reference to Bud's management philosophy. Somehow, it got exposed. and the results speak for themselves. Maybe Bud turned off crucial farming equipment and power, causing starvation and a hopeless situation for the dwellers. Or maybe their own civil war caused so much damage that they were goners, like a Vault-34 situation. Either way, they all died in the end. Now, alternatively, maybe there was a civil war against these higher-ups because something was so deeply wrong in the vault that the dwellers couldn't handle it. Which begs the question, what could this problem have been? What warranted this? Well, remember, we see how the crops are dead, and we just kind of assume that they died since the dwellers did and weren't tending to them. But what if they were like this before the dwellers died? Also, there were televised mouse experiments in the vault, talking about how having overpopulation causes violence and cannibalism. Something's really off here, especially when the experiment shown in the video is called a mouse utopia. For those who don't know, these were real-life experiments performed by ethologist John Calhoun to study the effects of overpopulation in mouse and rat populations. Test populations were given unlimited food, in large shelters which were perfectly safe from danger, allowing for unlimited population growth. But what followed was a phenomenon Calhoun dubbed a behavioral sink. As the animal populations grew, their behavior changed, leading to such things as cannibalism and other atrocities. A spiritual death. And in time, in the face of complete safety, each population went extinct. For a better breakdown on the subject, I'd recommend the Down the Rabbit Hole video covering the Mouse Utopia experiments. It's sinister stuff, especially when Calhoun meant for his experiments to serve as a predictive model for humanity's populations. The Mouse Utopia experiments definitely apply to Vault-32, and they, along with the dead crops, give us more ideas into what could have happened to cause the crisis. Maybe the Vault had issues with its artificial farm and began to starve. To ward off any doom and gloom, the Overseer showed educational tapes on the dangers of having food and overpopulation, teaching the masses that just because you and your loved ones are starving to death, you should be grateful. Things could always be worse. It doesn't work, and there's an uprising. Dwellers launch themselves into a violent furor, claiming how they know the truth, that they deserve food to survive, and they aren't like the mice on TV. They put a stop to Vault management, but it doesn't solve anything. There's still no food to eat, nothing to sustain themselves with. Given the choice of eating each other or dying with some humanity, the survivors choose the latter. They choose not to die like animals. This leads me to my next idea. Because seriously, what's up with the Vault having to watch this, out of all the entertainment they could possibly grab? Yeah, I don't think they had this randomly lying about, even as an education tape. I think it was deliberate, and I'm going to go further with this. Lucy, a resident of Vault-33, mentions there being a plague that impacted her vault.
You know, my vault has endured hardship too. In the Great Plague of 77, everyone had to quarantine. They couldn't work the farms together. People starved, my mother included.
And I don't think the plague was random either. I think these problems are deliberately being done to Vault-32 and 33. Basically, my theory is that both vaults are built to fail every once in a while, with issues intentionally manufactured and coordinated by Bud and the Overseers. In line with what the tapes show, I think Bud fears that if his vaults are too perfect and pristine, the populations may overpopulate and fall victim to behavioral sink. They weaken and worsen over time, like what we see with Vault-33's residents, especially the people who try to run for Overseer who aren't a Bud from Vault-31. They're passive-aggressive cowards not fit to lead. So, be it a plague, a bad harvest season, or a mechanical meltdown, Bud tampers with the vaults and causes dangerous problems to prevent behavioral sink. Or, alternatively, This is just Bud's way of using science gobbledygook as justification for his evil. Bud might just orchestrate problems whenever the Vaults run the risk of discovering him and his agenda. 33 fell victim to the plague right around when Lucy's mom, Rose, the wife of Hank the Overseer, ran out with his kids. 32 rebelled against management just before it completely died. There's a pattern here, but this is all just my theory, and we'll have to see where the show goes. At the end of the day, I think Vault 32's goal of bettering mankind is making smarter generations that are manager material. People who can be leaders of the Wasteland, and potentially lead us out of it. There is a cost to perfection though. Populations worsen, or people are smart enough to rebel, which Bud potentially has to sort out by creating crisis situations, like what we see in the collapse of Vault 32. As for the spaceship theory, Vault 32 could translate into how to manage a space crew population. Overpopulation could be a genuine problem on the ship, and we've gone over ways it could be addressed before in this series, with the likes of the sacrificial chamber in Vault 11. Perhaps then, 32 was studying to see if a more humane approach would work instead of an extreme one. Rather than exterminating residents, 32 would simply teach them the dangers of overpopulation, to see if that deters rapid population growth. Not even using subliminal messages or mind control like in other Vault-Tec experiments, just simple educational tapes. It could even be a good idea to see if teaching about the Mouse Utopias makes people accept imperfection in their artificial society, from tragic starvation to system malfunction. Conditioning people with tapes teaching how perfection leads to suffering and death could hypothetically create a people more accepting of their environment, in a vault or in space. There's another idea I have though. We can assume there'd be a living space crew, as well as an elite group kept in cryostasis, reserved for the final destination or when they were needed on deck. I always assumed the cryo chambers would be blatant knowledge on board, but maybe 32 was a test to see if the background of the elite should remain hidden. Maybe people won't want to spend their whole lives on board working to death and raising their kids to do the same, in service to a select group of folks who just get to snooze through the stars. Maybe it really is best to keep the elite and their cryo chambers a secret. Vault 33 is the last installment of the Trilateral Vault. Its overseers seem to be universally traded from Vault 31, and it's a quaint little farming community, complete with artificial props and a projector that produces a fake sky with a day and night cycle. It's really similar to Vault 32, except alive, so it's the better place to be. It also looks like a perfect vault to live in, almost like a control vault where people are happy, productive, and still breathing. Ultimately, however, 33 is a glorified breeding ground, an experiment at the mercy of an evil Roomba. Bud controls which buds he sends to 33, while staying in contact with its overseer to manage things. Any potential problems, I don't think he deals with peacefully. We mentioned how Vault 33 suffered a plague earlier in the video. Simply put, I don't think this plague was a natural occurrence. The same way I don't think 32's collapse was a natural occurrence either. I believe Bud may be deliberately orchestrating events to kill off dwellers. Whether this is to prevent behavioral sync or rebellion, we'll have to learn as the show goes. Maybe none of this will be the case, but it's food for thought with regards to why the Vault is evil. And personally, I lean towards the rebellion prevention idea because of 33. 32 rebelled and collapsed. 33 had an overseer named Hank, whose wife Rose left the vault with their kids, including main character Lucy. Rose rebelled and left. And all of a sudden, there's this plague causing starvation, which Hank just so happens to use as an excuse to lie about what happened to Rose. He convinces Lucy that Rose died of starvation.
People starved, my mother included.
But it's all a lie. What I think actually went down is Rose left with the kids. Hank DM'd Bud, told him about the situation, and then Bud caused the plague and starvation as a distraction. That way, people's minds would be forced on more pressing matters, like surviving. There'd be a smaller threat of revolution when people are too worried about living another day. Speaking of something that can't be a coincidence, 33 definitely had a hand in nuking Shady Sands. When Rose escaped the vault, she found Shady Sands in Moldaver, until Hank showed up and took his children back. Soon after, Shady Sands got hit with a nuclear bomb. Now, I don't think Vault 33 has a built-in nuclear silo, nor any part of the Trilateral Vault. I think it's more likely that 33 contacted 31, who in turn contacted a powerful central vault to do the hit. And I believe we're going to find out what that vault is over the course of the show. As for other evil things about 33, I think there's something wrong about the marriage council system. It's basically a eugenics council, determining whether or not people deserve a chance of getting a partner if they can't find someone in their own vault. And there's no chance of going outside. If you can't find a loving partner in your vault on your own, this is your last chance, determined by a panel of Vault Elite. You have to justify your existence before them. It's really creepy. Other vaults like Vault 75, which gets referenced in the show, have experimented with eugenics, and that's kind of the Trilateral Vault's whole deal. In a nutshell, it's a eugenics vault. The last thing I wanted to mention is how in episode 5, Betty, the newly elected overseer of Vault 33, elects to clean up and reclaim Vault 32. And it's a big cover-up job. Not only are the bodies and graffiti gone, the overseer's terminal is completely destroyed. Not even Moldaver broke the terminal when she broke into Vault 32, as much as she hates the vaults in general for destroying Shady Sands. The implication behind this resettlement is that Vault 32 is perfectly, creepily primed for repopulation. And it made me wonder, is Betty following a policy here? Who's to say collapse like this hasn't happened once in the span of 200 years? Who's to say Bud hasn't used time before to solve a problem? As good as 33 might seem, it's all a lie. And I've got a feeling, with Norm's rebellion and the water chip destruction caused by Moldaver's forces, the future isn't so bright for the Vault. 33's goal to better mankind is to create generations of manager material. For a spaceship, same deal. But there is one more idea I want to suggest. Fallout is a series with a phenomenon called Old World Blues. People can grow obsessed with the past and develop depression over how much they want it compared to the wasteland they've got. But what if that could happen in a vault as well? Is it better having state-of-the-art simulations to replicate a better world? Or is it better not to give people a taste of life outside their metal prison? Would it be too much for them to bear? Or would other problems crop up? I guess we'll have to wait and see. The Vault proposals are ideas for vaults tossed around during the Vault-Tec meeting scene. The thing is, these ideas aren't just original one-offs. Some of them connect to vaults in the game series, and we'll be going over each of them. Frederick Sinclair, founder of the Sierra Madre Casino and affiliated with Big Mountain, comes up with an idea for a vault that's intentionally overcrowded, so people must compete to survive. This could be a reference to Vault 27, which was intentionally overcrowded and a vault we haven't seen in the series yet. It's only been mentioned so far in the Fallout Bible, and we've got a couple of those Bible vaults in the series so far, so it'd be cool to see another one. Repcon's representative pitches a vault whose overseer is a robot designed to deliver milk. She says it's intelligent, but this is a horrendous idea. Get her the heck out of here. I guess it would be interesting to see if having a smart AI as a leader would foster worthwhile generations of Vault Dwellers or space cadets. Just not a robot milkman. Vault-Tec's representative wants a vault that can produce super mutant soldiers using illegal immigrants. What disturbs me is, though we've seen Vault-Tec owned facilities like the Mariposa military base and Vault 87 using FEV to create super mutants, those were experiments done on American citizens, some of whom willingly volunteered for testing. We haven't heard of a vault filled with illegal immigrants yet, and I can only imagine how horrifying their living conditions were. The other testing facilities were already horrific, with how badly Vault-Tec wanted to create human super soldiers out of fellow Americans. Now, just picture how they'd be treating criminals. It's not a pleasant thought. While definitely inhumane, the FEV experiments could have legitimately been intended for the betterment of mankind, even by making perfect super soldiers. They can serve other purposes outside of going to war. How about going up against the Wasteland, or the vacuum of space and whatever planet you'd be landing on? You could create not just the perfect soldier, but the perfect survivor. Sinclair then gives another idea to have a vault pumping psychotropic drugs into the air supply. This is Vault 106, which turned its whole population insane. Presumably, Sinclair wanted another survival of the fittest scenario, and thought whoever survived would be a stronger, more capable person for living in the Wasteland. Repcon's rep gives her second idea as well. A vault that separates parents from children and only allows the smartest kids to reach adulthood. This is Vault 75, which is the eugenics vault we mentioned earlier. It was built under Malden Middle School, where children were separated from their parents, and only the best and brightest were allowed to survive after graduating vault schooling. For all the various vaults mentioned that already exist, you can watch my Volume 1 video, covering all the experimental vaults before the show. But for now, that's the end of the Why Every Vault is Evil Explained series. I do have another idea for a Vault Mods related video, and of course I'll be covering whatever official vaults we do get in the future. Also, I did have some plans to do a supercut video after remastering Volume 1 and re-recording the audio. Except Volume 1 and 2 are now outdated with the new lore. Maybe it's a good thing not to do it, you guys let me know. In general, I think I want to branch out. I don't just want to talk about evil human experiments and milk it till the two-headed cows come home. I want to talk about Fallout and why I love it so much. I want to talk about the end of the world outside our own, and other games and art too. I have a lot planned for this channel, but no matter what, I hope to keep improving my content to deliver something worth watching to you guys. So, if you've made it this far, thank you. Lots more to come. Until next time, stay safe out there.